welcome to another episode of the Workplace Therapy Podcast, where we discuss the realities of working together and healing together. My name is Scott Arrieta. I'm the CEO and founder of Unity & Company. We're a training and consulting firm that specializes in leadership development and employee engagement. And this week, I am delighted to introduce you all to our guest, Marcia Donziger. Marcia's the founder and CEO of Vital Biz Consulting. It's a boutique professional services firm helping leaders to reduce unwanted turnover, stress, and burnout. She's the architect of the Culture Cares framework, created to help today's organizations thrive. Her clients have seen results such as raising their employee net promoter score by 250% in a single year. Marcia has earned the trust of notable companies such as Microsoft, Atom Computing, Colorado College, social venture partner Boulder County, Up Partnership, Club Z, and Boulder Voices for Children. Wow, what a list. She holds a degree in organizational psychology. She's also received several awards, including the John Hickenlooper Unsung Hero Award, the Denver Channel's Everyday Hero Award, and most recently, the Outstanding Leader in Healthcare Award in 2023. She's the author of You Are Meant for Great Things, My Story of Turning Setbacks into Stepping Stones. It's a memoir published in 2023 that provides guidance and inspiration to individuals looking to rejuvenate and redefine themselves after facing challenges in life. Marcia, I am so excited to have you here on the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Scott. I'm so excited to be here.
All right. Well, let's just go ahead and dive right in. So whenever I read a summary of accomplishments as significant as the one that I just read on your behalf, I always wonder, how is it that you got into this type of work to begin with? What did that path even look like for you?
Yeah, well, for me, it kind of started in college. I didn't know what I wanted to do, went in undeclared as an 18-year-old and decided midway, I'm interested in business. I love people. Let's get into HR. That was kind of the path way back in the early 90s. And I was, looking into HR jobs when I was close to graduation and noticed that it was a lot around compliance and things that didn't interest me as much. It wasn't as much as being with the people, but it was really doing a lot of the important paperwork on the back end. So I decided I wanted to travel the world and find a job that paid me to travel. So I became a flight attendant for American. And there I got a firsthand education in people.
I can imagine. Yeah. It's what's it called? It's like a
master's
course. Yeah, it's master's level class. Sure.
Yes, working with 100 to 200 people at a time in a silver tube in the air was really fascinating and really got me in the middle of all the people. And then, it was nearing the late 90s and the internet boom was really starting to accelerate. And I was fascinated with technology. So I decided, I'm going to leave the flight attendant job. I've had a great time, and now I'm going to be in business. And so I went to work for a distributor called Maricel, a computer distributor, which was later bought by Arrow Electronics in the early 2000s. Arrow Electronics was a company in New York that moved to Colorado and became our biggest company by revenue. And I was in sales, selling enterprise computers. And then I had kids. And something that had happened to me along the way in the late 90s was I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. And in a moment, I had an emergency hysterectomy when the doctors found it and lost my ability to have kids. And obviously that was extremely, devastating to someone in their 20s. And I had always, as I, was building my career in the computer business world, I was seen as kind of the cancer whisperer for any young adults that, someone knew that had been diagnosed. They would find their way to me and I would just help support them through it and give them hope that they could survive the treatment process. And one of the things that I really struggled with when I was going through cancer was the inability to communicate with my friends and family in an efficient way. This was before Facebook and before social media, and I was always behind calling people back or emailing them back. And I didn't want to repeat the same depressing information over and over, in my healing process. And a few years after I was diagnosed and then recovered from cancer, a friend of mine, Lori, was diagnosed with cancer. And she was 33. And unfortunately, she passed away after 2 years from brain cancer. But during that 2-year period, she had friends that worked in the web business, and they created a website for her to easily connect with her friends and family throughout the cancer, her treatment process. And it was such a powerful experience for me to be part of this online community, which was a new concept back then. And after she died, I couldn't stop thinking about her. And I called her mom, and her mom said that website was our lifeline. So in 2007, I decided I'm going to leave the computer selling business and I'm going to start my own nonprofit. And I called it MyLifeLine Cancer Foundation. And we built a digital community platform for people diagnosed with cancer to easily connect with their friends and family. And during that process, I had also gotten married and was able to have children with the help of a surrogate mom and an egg donor. Today, my twin boys are 18 years old, seniors in high school, and it's been an incredible journey this whole life. And why I'm passionate about culture and employee engagement is because of all the different work experiences I've had in my adulthood, from working for the airline industry where the culture was very punitive. And I only saw my supervisor if I was late or in trouble for something, but you didn't have like growth conversations in career. That was not a thing. It was just very like slap you on the hand. That's when they would call you into the office. And then for my big computer job with Aero Electronics, I had the most amazing cultural experience, which like I didn't even know that was possible in a work environment. And when we were part of Maricel before we were bought by Aero in the computer business, our culture in our division or our business unit, which sold Sun Microsystems at the time, was the only profitable division within our entire company. The rest of the company interacted in a very transactional way. Our business unit was very relational from the top down, and the president became my mentor. Open door, how can I help you? What kind of career path do you want? Helped elevate me to an outside sales position while I was still pretty young and inexperienced. Gave me the confidence and the sponsorship to succeed in any endeavor I had. And to this day, all of the people that used to work in that company back then we still are on LinkedIn and talking about that was the best cultural experience. And I really want to bring that to all of my clients. I'm so passionate about, companies accelerating their business results and in finances and revenue and profit, while also having an incredible employee experience. You and I talked right before we push play, but if you can see it, you can believe it. And I've seen it. I've seen an incredibly profitable organization do it with a culture that was healthy, empowering, and inclusive.
Yeah. Oh man, I love that. There is something so powerful about experiencing a culture that is really firing on all cylinders, where people feel connected, to your point earlier, where they are communicating effectively and with empathy for each other's situation. And there's really just no substitute. I think back on my own work experience as well, and I can point out the one shining star that is the North Star example of what culture can and should be. And I wonder how many people go through their entire career without ever experiencing that.
I could tell you, a lot of my friends are still flight attendants since age 22. And so they've never experienced, a work environment that can be healthy and encouraging.
Yeah. And I think it's so amazing that there are people like you that are working with organizations to help them to see it so that they can be it and they can bring and aspire to be the types of organizations that will be that North Star for their employees and the people that they will come into contact with later in their career. Because these days people are switching organizations and switching roles more frequently than ever. And the place that I worked that had the best culture bar none was Stitch Fix. Pre-IPO, when we were under their original CEOs. I talked about her a lot on this podcast. One of the best leaders I've ever had the privilege of working for. But one of the things that she said that I think was just so indicative of their heart and their perspective on culture was they said at the time, it's like, we recognize that nobody is a lifer here, right? There's nobody who is here today who's going to retire from here 40 years from now, right? But they said that We want Stitch Fix to be not just a great place to work, but a great place to have worked. Not just a good place to be, but a good place to have been from. Because they recognize that the people who they have the privilege of engaging in their culture today are the seeds of culture in the future when they go to their next role, their next organization, their next job.
I was just going to say, such a missing link that their employees are going to be future customers and talking to their current customers and their future customers, and to skip over the fact that their employees are their first customer, who are really the megaphones in the world to their actual paying customers, is just such a miss. And, you and I are in this world, I think, to help leaders, with their effectiveness and the impact and legacy that they can build from a company perspective to personal.
I don't want to get too far away from what you just shared, because I do want to acknowledge, first of all, and thank you just for the vulnerability with which you outlined your story. I am humbled, but also very honored that you would share that with us. I am smiling from ear to ear to see how you've navigated the weight of a cancer diagnosis and the treatment plan and the community of people who have, prognoses that are not as good, and how on the other end of it, you have started a family and you've made it your mission to really work on enhancing culture and connection between people in the workplace. And I just wanted to just say that, I'm grateful for the work that you put in on that journey. I'm grateful that you and I can be sitting here talking about this and doing this work kind of together. But I'd love to just understand from your perspective how going through something that life-changing, that life-defining, help to inform your sense of mission and your clarity around the work that you're doing right now.
Yeah, it still informs me today. A lot of the times I can see myself getting caught up in some small details or small things that really don't matter. And every day I think that my diagnosis was like 28 years ago. And every day I think, oh my gosh, like it could come back, like, so what's really important today? What kind of impact do I want to make? And I'm really driven by making an impact in the time I have available on this earth, and helping other make the impact that they're created to make.
Yes. I love that. I think that I talk a lot about organizations and cultures and why some cultures end up becoming so dysfunctional. And really, at the end of the day, I think one of the preconditions to a dysfunctional culture is short-sightedness. You mentioned it just now. It's the companies who are too short-sighted to recognize that their employees are their first customer. And they can't lay out the implications of what happens if you create a poor cultural experience for the people who are helping you to build this thing and make that revenue. Sure, you might be able to squeeze more productivity and engagement out of people by sheer brute force for a quarter or two. But what are the long-term implications of continuing to burn people out and not putting them first? Right? And I think something like contemplating your own mortality and coming face to face with that gives you a longer lens than most people have, because you truly zoom out and you see what is really important. And it all comes down to connections and humans and how we interact with each other.
I agree. I agree.
Okay, well, I want to talk a little bit about the CARES framework. So you talked about that a little earlier as I was teeing up some of the accomplishments and the work that you've done. Would you mind just taking a minute or two and diving into what is the CARES framework? How did you develop it and why? And how do you use it to engage with companies on the type of work that you do?
Yeah, so Culture Cares is a model to help leaders think through what's most important and how to prioritize creating a healthy, empowering, and inclusive culture. So Imagine Cares is a acronym for commitment, appreciation, respect, engagement, and safety. And then imagine in your mind that it's a pyramid, like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And the C is at the peak of the pyramid. That's the commitment. It's the commitment that you want from your employees to be accountable for business results. It's the commitment to taking responsibility for your part of the work and ensuring that everyone else, it feels supported and able to achieve what they need to. So that's the peak. It's commitment. Loyalty is another word for commitment. They're loyal to your company. They're investing in your company. They're working above and beyond when they can, but not at risk to their own mental health and wellness. But they love to go. It doesn't feel like a chore to go above and beyond. They're passionate because they know, your employees know, that you actually care about them. So if you start at the top as the result, which is commitment, then we go down to the bottom, which is the S in cares, and that's safety. That's physical safety, it's psychological safety, it's job security. S stands for a lot of good things, which are all basic human needs. So if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs and his pyramid, you would start at the foundation and build up from there, strength from a strong foundation. So the foundation, and I love your most recent podcast I listened to around psychological safety. There's still a lot of people out there that really aren't familiar with that concept and the research around how it's the number one indicator of performance, inclusion, and innovation. And so the S will feel respected there. And then we level up to the A, which is appreciation. And it's not just about saying thank you a lot. It's about being more intentional with how individuals like to be appreciated. There's so much research about how cultures of recognition have 3 times higher retention rate, for example. So if retention is your goal, let's look at appreciation and really dial it in. It's not about doing more, it's about doing it smarter. And so if you put these pieces into place, safety, engagement, respect, appreciation, you're going to get that commitment that you seek. And the results are going to show in your bottom line.
Oh, there's so much stuff I love about this framework, Marcia. First and foremost, I love how you talk about commitment as the output or as the outcome of conditions that need to be met prior. Because a lot of times when we work with organizations and we work with leaders, they start the conversation by just bemoaning the fact that they don't feel like their employees are as engaged, and they seem really entitled, and they seem like they want to quiet quit. And so it's this very, hate to use such a powerful term here, but almost like victim mentality, where, what drives commitment and loyalty is almost inscrutable to them. And I love the fact that you very clearly and very powerfully and very visually communicate, actually, there are inputs that need to exist before you can expect loyalty as an outcome. Starting first and foremost with safety. And I think you're right. I think there are a lot of organizations that haven't truly kind of looked into the benefits of psychological safety and trust as being a foundational precursor to the type of results that they want to see. And there are still organizations out there that have probably heard of it, or at least familiar with some of the platitudes that are spoken about with trust and psychological safety, but they haven't really internalized it and believed it, probably because of competing short-term pressures from their board and from their shareholder. I think that you've got the golden key here. Your Culture Cares framework truly is something that I think would be transformational for most organizations if they were to embrace that and implement it internally. So I'd love to know, how do you go about the gargantuan task of working with an organization who is bought into that framework and wants to implement it, but it's a big commitment and they don't necessarily know where to start? They understand that trust and psychological safety are important, but it seems really nebulous. It's not something that's easy to check off the box. How do you help them to see the forest for the trees?
Yeah. Well, the first thing with commitment to is commitment to measuring your culture. And once they see the data, this is where I always start, is a cultural listening tour. So we, provide the culture care survey, and then we do some stakeholder interviews. I look at what else, what other engagement survey results were there. And just really review all the comments. As an external person, I think it's really beneficial for all companies to find an external person to do this work, because inherently they're afraid that if it's not anonymous or it's not confidential enough, their HR person or team it's going to look badly on them, and that's not safe. They need an external person or external company that they trust. So first start there, find an external company that you can trust. And then commit to measuring the levels of psychological safety, engagement, respect, and appreciation. And you can measure that. And then you can come to terms with, okay, here's where we are. Here's our baseline today. And when we look at the psychological safety scores, I always say, if you want to get somewhere faster, start with trust and safety. You can do all the recognition programs in the world, but if people aren't feeling like they can speak up without fear of retribution, then your appreciation platforms that you're paying for are going to fall flat, and that's a waste of money. So I think the CARES framework is beneficial in that it can help focus you on what matters most first and what people want from their companies most, which is a trusting environment.
Yeah, I agree. And unfortunately, I feel like there are a lot of organizations that feel either budget constrained or time constrained, and they really look for the short-term solutions. One of the reasons why every place I've ever worked has an appreciation platform and a recognition platform.
Yes.
Every single place. Now, utilization varied, but I'll tell you that at Stitch Fix, utilization was very high because the underlying safety and feelings of trust were strong. And so those recognition pieces actually meant something with that as a foundation. But yeah, unfortunately, a lot of organizations fall into the box checking trap of like, oh, it'll be easy for me to solve acknowledgement because I'll just implement this platform in order to do it. I want to ask you a spicy question. So in the tech sector specifically, there have been mass layoffs for the last 2 years or so, and they affect like the larger tech employers like the Metas and maybe not Apple, but we'll talk about Apple later on, maybe Meta, Google, those kind of companies, but also companies that are smaller and more downstream. So companies in the startup space have also followed suit and made some pretty aggressive layoff decisions. Now, there's been a lot of talk in the media about how some of this is like inflicted, right? Companies just took on too much headcount in either an attempt to buy a lot of the supply off the market or just really poor demand forecasting and just picking up more people than they needed. But then there are a lot of people who have analyzed the situation have said something more cynical, like maybe what might be motivating these layoffs might be a short-term focus on propping up the balance sheet and making the company look more profitable in the short term than they truly are. And this seems to be validated by the fact that after these mass layoffs happen, within a quarter or two, these companies have their recs posted on the market again, and like things seem to be picking up. And so I'm wondering if you have a perspective on, from what you've seen, what is the impact to trust and psychological safety when like a mass layoff event happens? And is there a way for leadership, let's say that they aren't making those layoff cuts from a cynical profit bolstering perspective, they actually find themselves in a bind and they're doing this regrettably. Is there a way for them to maintain trust and psychological safety and do something that what feels cataclysmic, to their employees?
Yeah, it's a devastating impact to individuals and their families that rely on this job. And then mass layoffs. There's just as much psychological trauma from the people that weren't laid off. And when is the next shoe going to drop? And there's so much anxiety to address after a layoff with the people still there. And I think that's a crucial time that leaders can really step forward and talk about the culture of the organization, talk about psychological safety as a metric towards performance and innovation, which is ultimately what every tech company needs to stay alive, is innovation. So the quickest way to that is trust and psychological safety. Let's make sure that that's strong. And also, how did you treat your people during these mass layoffs? I'm writing a second book on culture leadership, and I'm interviewing people all across a lot of different sectors, but mostly tech and health sectors. Thinkific is an example of a company that had to do mass layoffs about a couple of years after the pandemic started. And I talked with their head of HR about how they did it because I was so impressed. I mean, how they said that we are, we're devastated that we have to lay all these incredible people off. We're helping them all find new jobs. We're giving them referrals. It's no fault of their own. It's just, it's the economy. So I really wanted to take notes on how they did that and promote that throughout, because, the layoffs don't stop. And so I think other companies can learn from Thinkific's example about
Yeah.
how they did it and how proactive they were in helping people, create a bridge to their next opportunity.
I love that, because I do think that it is in those moments of truth that an organization's true character shows, or their true culture shows, right? And if you find yourself in a layoff scenario, that's obviously not great in terms of a situation. And no matter how you like to slice it, executive leadership has a disproportionate amount to do with it, even if it's market conditions or something that you couldn't have foreseen. At the end of the day, the leaders made some of the more salient decisions that made that layoff event possible. And yet the people who bear the most direct consequences of it are people further down the totem pole. Either the people who are laid off themselves now have to re-enter the job search pool, or they're the people who remain, who now have to take on more work and also have to deal with the grief and trauma of survivor's guilt. Why did I survive? Am I next? When's the next time this is going to happen, right? And so there's a huge impact to psychological safety that happens even if the reasons are valid and unavoidable. And I think where a lot of organizations really don't invest a ton is in, like what you said, what is the plan for the people who are being let go? Are we just making an announcement on Zoom, sending you an email with a DocuSign to your severance agreement? Or are we talking to you about your contributions, thanking you for your work, helping to figure out if there are other ways to deploy you either internally, or if that's not an option, to help you find something externally? Are we setting aside your money for severance? I've even seen some organizations who have cut executive pay, a mass layoff event. And my wife's company, she works for a large tech company, and they recently had a mass layoff event. But in terms of scaled layoff events in the tech sector, I think they actually did a really good job, because they did cut executive compensation and bonuses. They did ask the people remaining to take a small but significant, when it's spread across that many people, cut to their overall salaries, and they expressed that it's temporary. They expressed that this is just for us to get back on our feet. And then they establish a center of excellence internally to help them find out if there are other ways of redeploying people who are on the chopping block for layoffs. So obviously not a great way or not a great thing to have to do. But I think there's a huge difference between the Zoom layoff and a company that is obviously taking measures to treat people like human beings and to try to navigate that situation as effectively as possible.
And again, it's about your company reputation that impacts sales. It's like just remember, the people that you lay off, they're talking to your customers. So if
Yes.
we're all the bottom line oriented out there, and we all need to be, because our revenue fuels our growth and our mission, we've just got to remember that everyone's just a person trying to do their best on this spinning earth in the universe for the time we have on here.
Man, I think that's just the greatest advice for all people in all situations. I think the world would just be better if we all realized that we're just all people trying to do our best. All right, so we're nearing the end here. Before we get to the lightning round, I wanted to ask you one more question, which is, so let's say that there are leaders or employees who have listened to this podcast and they're so excited about the work that you do. They didn't even know maybe that people are out there helping to shine a light on what cultural success even looks like. But their executive leadership team hasn't made the decision to prioritize working with somebody like you quite yet. What is something that leaders internally who care about making a difference on the culture can do if the executive team hasn't decided to bring you in to do a broader organizational engagement?
Well, that's very common. So we work with business unit leaders a lot. One annual or year-long engagement that just wrapping up is working with the sales organization of a company. And they really wanted to impact the culture. And they brought me in because they didn't have a structure or a process with which to build the culture. And they saw the CARES model as that way to do it. And it's worked incredibly. So we did the assessment. There's a lot of reds and yellows. I kind of bucket into red, yellow, and green on what's working well, what could be improved, and what really needs help. There's a lot of reds and yellows in last year's survey. This year's survey, everything went to green, except for one yellow. And that yellow was trust. And it was very close to green. And it was very low red before. So it's a high yellow now. It was the only yellow. And they are just blown away. They're showing their executive team like this, imagine this could be a pilot. Let's do this everywhere, because they have a large organization. So just working with the business unit leaders has been, a great experience. And you had said something earlier, it's just like, oh, this is a lot of work. It's really not. This is a secret. It's really not. You just have to talk about culture being important to you. You have to put action into your plan, and it doesn't have to be a big deal plan that's expensive. This was not an expensive engagement for them over the last year to get these significant results that their executive team is going to be fawning over. And really, it's not that big of an investment, and the results just, oh my gosh, I'm just like so excited for them. And you can get started anywhere. If you're a team leader, just do it from that standpoint and just be an example of what's possible, and people will notice your light in the company.
I 100% agree with that. And I think that's such a great way of thinking about it. Like, I think too often mid-senior level leaders feel almost disempowered or almost at the mercy of what their executive team decides to prioritize. And the reality is it can almost be more powerful to be that light, in the valley of the darkness, not to be overly dramatic or metaphorical, but like the light shines brighter where it is not common. We've definitely worked with organizations where we ask them about culture, and they can't describe exactly what makes a great culture, but they can point to the leader, the team, the business unit that has it. And they're like, if we could make the entire company look more like that, that would be amazing. So I love the message that like team leaders, business unit leaders, department heads are way more empowered than they might think.
Yeah. Well, there's a will, there's a way.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we're going to make a left turn here and transition to the lightning round. So the rules of the lightning round are simple. Some of these are going to be, business and career related questions. Some of them are not. But I'll ask you a quick question. You'll have 30 seconds or less to give me an off the cuff answer. Are you ready to play?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. All right. So first and foremost, who is a leader that you look up to and why?
It's Bill Page, who I talked about earlier at the first tech company I worked for.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. What made Bill so great?
He was really a servant leader before it became a term or became popular. He really was. He would walk around the office, and I was like entry level at that point in a cubicle. And he would walk around the office and talk to all of us minions, brand new people, young people, and just want to talk to us and learn about us and what made us tick. And I would always wonder, this isn't the president of the company too busy to talk to me about my little things here. But I was connected to the customer, and Bill Page knew, oh, Marcia's connected to the customer. I'm going to make sure Marcia has a great experience. She's going to treat our customers better. And lo and behold, we were the only profitable department in the company, and we got purchased by Aero Electronics, an incredibly financially successful company, plucked us right out of that one company that went under less than a year later.
I love that. Something as simple as like taking an interest and like making it really obvious, the things that matter. It means a lot. And I think there's a message there for leaders too, just in terms of like, people are watching. Your presence, the questions you ask, the engagement that you have in their lives means a ton.
Yes.
It's great. Okay, next one. What's your bucket list vacation destination and why?
It's actually Paris, and I'm leaving tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Congratulations. Are you excited? Are you packed? What are you doing on this podcast? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. That's awesome. Have you ever been?
I have as been when I was a flight attendant. So it was kind of
Oh,
like,
obviously.
a work trip or something. But now I
Yeah.
get to go and just enjoy. I'll be there for 5 days and just get to walk around the cold, rainy streets. And
That's
happy as
awesome.
ever.
Have the best time. I am so jealous of all of the pastries you will have access to while you're there.
Have you been?
I have been, yeah. So during business school, we had a residency, which was like a week long set of classes in Brussels. And everybody in the cohort was like, well, if we're going to be on that side of the world, we might as well take a couple, 3 weeks and just do it right. And so Monica and I, we spent some time, we were based in Paris, and then we spent a day in London, and then we went to Brussels, and then I was in class, and then she went to, like Ghent and Bruges and like all these other cool places while I was like doing managerial accounting or something.
It sounds like you have to,
So yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I do need another trip to Paris. Hopefully that'll be sometime soon.
I'll have a pastry for you. How's that?
Absolutely. All right. Tell us about the funniest or most awkward moment you've had in the workplace.
Oh, I've had several. So the first one that comes to mind, I've actually done this twice. I've worn two different shoes to work. So I guess I was leaving too early. It was dark and I went into my closet and I put on like pumps, high heels. And one was navy and one was black, and it looked the same. And I was in a rush and I get to work, and then it's broad daylight and you can really tell that there's two different shoes on.
Yep.
That's a weird story, but it's happened twice.
It's great. I haven't done the two different shoes, but I'm also kind of like a one primary pair of shoe person, right? So I don't have a lot of opportunity. But I've definitely done two different socks or shirts and pants that I thought coordinated, but then really didn't when it wasn't dark. I've been there for sure. All right. What's the most useful non-work related app on your phone?
My favorite app is called Miracle Morning, and it's based off of Hal Elrod's many, many books called Miracle Morning for all kinds of people, real estate agents, entrepreneurs. But it's around the SAVERS program, and SAVERS is an acronym for silence, affirmation, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing or writing. And so there's an app, and I think it's like $39 a year or something. And I do like something on the app almost every morning. I've got really long streak going, and that's really important to me. So it's always just not about just rushing to my computer in the morning because I have a home office. It's about find a different place to sit, and just even if it's quiet for 5 minutes. I love reading something inspirational in the morning, and that gets me started in a great way.
Yeah,
Do you have
I
a
love
morning
that.
routine?
What's that?
Do you have a morning routine?
I was just feeling convicted 100% of the time that you were talking because I was just thinking to myself how much I need to reestablish that separation between easing into my morning and starting work. And I've not been doing that as much. I used to have a meditation routine that I would do, a meditation and breathing routine, and I found that that really helped. And then I would also journal for a little while in the mornings. And then I do have this tendency when work picks up to be just like really focused on just work. And I do think like I need a lot more practice and like setting up healthier boundaries and reserving time to invest in me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a thing that I know I have to work on.
Even if it's just 5 minutes. Set up 5 minutes.
Absolutely.
Everyone can find 5 minutes.
Yes, yes. Ooh, speaking of investing in yourself, what is the most important thing that you've done to invest in your mental health?
I think it is that morning routine, really. I've been to therapy in different times of my life, coaching. I listen to a lot of inspirational podcasts like this one, and just around things I'm passionate about with like-minded people want to help make the world a better place. That's all good for my mental health. That's mostly what I do.
Absolutely. All right. Taking a left turn here. What's your biggest pet peeve? What impacts your mental health negatively?
Well, most recently, passwords. And email, there's hundreds of passwords that we now have to keep. The spreadsheet I have is just outrageous. And then in the new year, you probably noticed that the old passwords are like not secure enough because cybersecurity, there's a lot of bad players in the world that are going to try and get into your stuff. So, I mean, it worries me and it stresses me out about online security. And then just the whole password thing drives me nuts.
I'm right there with you. I made the switch to a password manager a few years back and then started having it automatically generate these obnoxiously long alphanumeric passwords for me,
Yeah.
which is convenient sometimes, except for I got an email the other day that their security had been breached and like a bunch of my passwords. That was like the whole point, was they were supposed to like keep my password safe. And now I don't know what my actual passwords are for anything because they're all 25 characters, completely randomized. So I don't know. I'm doing what I can to keep myself protected, but I'm sure that my life is all over the dark web at this point.
I think all of ours are. I think whichever company can kind of reduce the frustration and stress of passwords and keep us all safe at the same time, that's the next unicorn company.
That's the next one.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What piece of literature or art has most shaped your perspective on life or leadership?
Oh, literature or art. I do read, I read a lot. Right now I'm reading The Obstacle is the Way. I think Ryan Holiday is the author. I'm also reading, it's called like Modern Wisdom. It's called Modern Wisdom something. And I love this book. And it's all just like short chapters that kind of remind you of old philosophical things of like, don't sweat the small stuff, like that stuff. Like that inspires me. That's what I love to do in my miracle morning practice every morning, is read a chapter of one of those books and just remind myself that all the little details in life will not matter in the end, and try not to get sucked into the drama of any of that. And I feel like I need to be reminded every day, because that's just kind of what our brains do. It's just like getting into the drama of different things, or clients or customers, or your business isn't doing this, or it's not doing enough of that, or it is. So every day, what inspires me is just kind of remember what the old philosophers used to say that are still true today.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll be inspired by a lot of art in Paris.
Absolutely. Oh my God, the Louvre is just an incredible place to spend, I don't know, every day. You could probably spend every day at the Louvre and like
Yes,
not run out of things to see.
definitely.
That's fantastic. I love how intentional you are about protecting time to widen your perspective. You know, I think if there's one thing that I've taken from your story today, well, there are many things, more than one, but one consistent thread is I think you are very equipped to do the work that you do because of the fact that your perspective is persistently wider than most people, because it's easy to get sucked in to the short term. It's easy to get sucked into the now. It's easy to despair because you can't see the forest for the trees, right? So I think being intentional about reminding yourself about, you know, the broader picture is like really, really necessary. That's great. What's your mission in life?
I mean, what drives me in life is freedom, impact, and connection. I've learned this very recently. I mean, I knew it before, but now I can articulate it really well. If I
Mm-hmm.
have control over those three things, or if I can affect change in those three areas for myself and others, then I'm just like happy every day. I'll try not to let the passwords bother me too much.
Freedom, impact, and connection. I mean, and those three things shine through so prominently in the work that you've chosen to do, and even in just the conversation that we've had about it today. So, absolutely, those are your words for sure. How can we be better human beings?
I think that's what the CARES model is about, is even if you forget what the acronym stands for, just remember to care about others. And I think that's it. That's all we need from each other. I mean, this world is, there's wars and there's danger and there's violence, and I think people are just, either not equipped, or they weren't given, caring and love to themselves, like that. If we just cared about each other, with our differences and with our similarities, the world would spin a little smoother rather than the
Yep.
conflict.
100% agree. It's like everything we need to know about treating each other, we first learned in kindergarten. And for some reason, I think we all slowly let go of that over time. But how much better would the world be if we never did? Marcia, this conversation has just been so great. I mean, it fills my heart with hope and happiness to know that there are people like you in the world doing the work that you are doing, helping to model this for people. And just changing the context of where people spend 40, 50, 60 hours a week, which is their job. So thank you so much just for everything that you've done and for everything that you've endured to get you to this point. The work that you're doing is so, so important. And so to that end, if there are listeners who would love to just kind of talk to you, to pick your brain or explore working with you on an engagement in the future, what's the best way that they can do that?
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn is a great way to connect. My name is spelled, should I spell my name?
Yes.
Okay. It's MarciaDonziger. So you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me at MarciaDonziger.com and email me through there. And I would love to connect with anyone who wants to learn more about the CARES model and see how you can help bolster your culture to get the results you want.
Absolutely. Well, and anybody who decides to reach out to you, I'm sure will be very edified by the experience. So Marcia, again, thank you so much for the time that you've spent with us here today. In closing, if you enjoyed this conversation with Marcia Donziger and you'd like to hear more episodes like it, you can reach out to us with your feedback at info@workplacetherapy.net. And if you are in the market for leadership development or employee engagement efforts at your organization, you can reach out to us at info@unityandcompany.com. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time here on the Workplace Therapy Podcast.